Afternoon, guys. I've got this knife blank which I've had kicking around for a while. I made it a long while ago and it needs some scales, and I'm going to use the homemade scale material for this that I made in a previous video. This is it, and if you didn't see the video, I'll put a link somewhere up here, or is it the other side? I don't know, I can never tell when I'm filming. But anyway, this is it. It's black epoxy with brass flake in it, which I captured in my vacuum cleaner from my lathe. Now it was this way built, so I'm going to cut it downwards because it seems to have settled towards the bottom, so I don't want to get cut it this way and get lots in this side, and then as I get to this side there'll be nothing. So that's why I'm going to cut it that way. Now I'm going to do it on the bandsaw, and I've turned the bandsaw down really slow because I don't want it to burn its way through and melt it. I want it to actually cut it. So hopefully running it slow will do the trick. Let's see what happens. I've obviously sped this up because it takes quite a long while running it nice and slow, but it's doing the trick. It's not burning it. It is actually cutting through. And there we go. I don't quite know why it's settled like that. It's settled in a lump. But it looks quite nice. Might have liked it if the bits were a little bit bigger. But we'll see. I quite like the effect so far. Cut one for the other side. I had no idea if this was going to work because the epoxy is about 10 or 12 years out of date or more, but it seems to have done quite well. Yeah, quite like the effect so far. I think once that's polished, that'll look quite nice. Yeah, cool. So I've clamped both pieces to the back of the knife blank, just so I can drill the rivet holes. We'll say rivet holes. I'm going to just put some brass pins in and epoxy it all together. I might peen them over, but we'll see how it goes once I've got it all together. Oh, my light's just gone out. I think the battery's gone flat. To charge that up. Right, I don't need all this obviously, so I'm just going to mark the bits I don't need roughly and whip them off. The same on this one, if I can line the holes up. Just roughly. Can't get my switch to work properly. There we go. Oh, cuts much quicker on the flat. That's still with the saw running slow. Lovely job. Alright, so I'm going to go over to the sander and just make sure they're nice and flat so that they sit down nicely on the blank and epoxy quite well with any luck. I don't want any big gaps and lumps and bumps out of it. I'm using quite an old belt. It's a 36 grit, but it's quite old, so it's not particularly sharp, but it's doing the job. And again, it's not melting it. I was worried that it might melt it. Running too fast. There we go. Right, these are the pins I'm going to use if it will focus. Now these are just, well, it was one pin out of an old 3-phase plug. the plug broke, so when I bin it I always take the bits of brass out because they always come in handy for things, little jobs like this. Now I'm going to clean this off because I don't quite know whether I polished that with the polisher, whether I've got actual polish left in the teeth, which obviously the epoxy won't adhere to very well, so I'm just going to get some acetone on there. Now I've never made a handle of this shape with the square back end. I've always put a nice rounded end on and a lanyard hole in most of my knives, that sort of style. It's actually not too dirty. I just thought for a change I'd do something different. Just give them a quick wipe over as well, get the dust off. Alright, I think that'll do it. Get that out of the way, that is so flammable, that stuff, and get rid of this way over onto the fire. Right, I've got this epoxy is, I'm not quite sure what make it is. It's quite a popular one. And you've obviously seen the baggy trick that I use for mixing it. If you haven't, where have you been? Could do with a bigger baggy really, but I've got loads and loads of these little ones. But actually you don't need it too big, otherwise it spreads out too much. So just try and get equal amounts in there from each one. Zip it up and mush it around. Do it for quite a long while because you really want to make sure it's all thoroughly mixed. And then it's just a question of whipping the corner off with a little pair of scissors, and it's like an icing bag. Those of you who are into cooking. Now actually, before I do that, to make life a little bit easier, just going to put my knife vise up. If you've never seen this before, again, where have you been? And I'll put another link up to this one where how I made this. Right, just squidge it out. I've got a little bit of, there we go, a little tiny bit of the epoxy handle there. I'll just use as a spreader. Same the other side. As you can see, it's very clean, mess free doing it like that. I'm just going to clamp her up. Get another couple of clamps on there. You can see the epoxy squidging out nicely, even though I didn't put masses on there. Just checking there's no voids. Making sure it's all thoroughly coated. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. So we'll stick her back in there. I just want to make sure that the pins are covered as well. I didn't actually put any on the pins before I put them in, so I'm just going to do that. That was over the pin, so I'll just go around it so I can get to it. Yeah, they feel a bit dry underneath, so I'm just going to whip them out and put a little bit on. Alright, I think that's about it. That one's slipping down, so I'll stand that upright so that they don't fall out. I shall leave that now. It's Friday, leave that till Monday, and then we'll have a look, see what we've got. So we'll see you then. So it's now Monday. It's sat over the weekend, and it looks like it's gone pretty hard. Get these clamps off and we'll have a look. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. It's gone pretty hard. Yep, not bad at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on the bandsaw again and just trim off some of the excess. I don't really want to be filing and grinding all that lot off, so I'll get as much off as I can before we get it on the grinder. I've got the bandsaw running slowly again like I did before, and I've wrapped the blade up not only to protect the blade but to protect me. I cut myself with it even though I hadn't even sharpened it yet. So let's see if I can see. I don't want to hit the actual blade because having hardened it, I don't want it to take all the teeth off my saw. Really must get a new switch for this. That bone's a bit thick. Right, let's see what we can do. It's funny stuff when it's the sort of the swarf off it is it's really funny stuff. It's sort of almost like dust, the sort of dust you'd find in a cupboard that hasn't been opened for years. It's really weird stuff. Don't know what the epoxy was in the first place. Anyway, that's taken the worst off. So now I can get it on the sander. I'll put a brand new belt on here. This is a 36 grit, so I'm just going to go very gently till I see exactly what it's taking off. Get just back down to the spine. It comes off quite easily with the sander, that's for sure. So I don't know exactly how hard it's going to be, this epoxy. But as a proof of concept, which is what the whole video's about, it actually worked. If I wanted to do it again, I could get some better epoxy. I don't know if it'll focus. Come on, focus, you feckin' thing. Here we go. Doesn't look too bad. There's a few little marks where a few of the little bits have been pulled out, but on the whole it's not too bad. But I have discovered if you use a fine file it's much better than using one of these coarse ones, because that did really pick the bits up and tear them out, whereas for some reason using a finer one doesn't. So I'm just going to give it a final smooth off with a fine file. Just trying to get it to feel nice in the hand and have no ridges and lumps and bumps. It might not be the same thickness both sides, but as long as it feels nice. That half round one just finished it off. Yeah, pleased with that. So now let's go on to the sandpaper. I'll start with 120 and see how we get on. Right way up, Gary, that's it. This is the bit that obviously always takes the time. Now somewhere I have got a whole packet of wet and dry going right the way down to about 2000 grit. But do you think I can find it? It's in this shop somewhere, I'm sure of it, but I cannot find it. So what I'm going to have to do is use the discs from my air sander, because I just can't find the wet and dry. So I'm going to go down next to 320 and we'll go from there. This really is the laborious bit. $600 I think I've got there, I'm not sure. Something like that. Yeah, 600 on that one. I'm going to finish off with 1500 because that's as low as I've got in these discs. But I think it'll probably do the job. Alright, we're just about there, I reckon. Feels nice. Always like to use my hands for just to see if something is right. If it feels nice in the hand, it's usually pretty right. Come on, focus, you feckin' thing. I think it's because it's so dark in here. So there's a bit of a sheen on there. That's under these poor lights I've got in this workshop. So if we can get a bit of polish on there, see if we can brighten that up a bit. And what I'm going to use is T-Cut, just ordinary scratch remover for your car, basically because that's all I've got to hand. And a microfiber cloth, and again give it some rubbing, give it some beans. Haven't said that for a long while. It looks a bit better already. I've only been at it a few minutes. That's definitely got much more of a shine to it. Oh yes, you can see that even, as I say, in the pool light. It's definitely shinier. I haven't spent an awful lot of time on this. Basically it is literally just a proof of concept. Doesn't look bad at all out in the daylight. Can't really get a good view of it. The shadows and the stuff, there's the little bits that are missing. There's quite a few little holes that have popped out, but I'm not going to worry about that. And obviously these corners where the brass settled oddly. But overall I'm pretty pleased. I rather like the effect. Let's have a look inside, see if it looks any different in artificial light. No, not a lot. Still get the general idea. As I say, I could have spent an awful lot more time on this. There's quite a big bit that's missing out of that side there. Yeah, I could have spent an awful lot more time on it, but I just wanted to to prove to myself whether it could be done or not with this brass in it. I didn't want to spend a lot of time and then find that it was no good. So we'll get the tape off and sharpen up the blade. So here we are at home. Got my cheap Chinese knife sharpener. I'm not going to explain how it all works and how you set it all up again, because I've done a video of it and I'll put a link up. And it is a bit fiddly, but then again it is a 25 quid Chinese knife sharpener. It's not designed for knife makers. It's designed for, you know, guys in their shed that might make the odd knife, or someone who just wants to sharpen knives that they buy. It's not by any means a professional tool, but it works if you set it up properly. You need to set it up. The jaws that hold the blade have lots of different screws for different thicknesses, and you have to figure it out, and it does take some time, but if you're using the same sort of blade, once you've set it, you're about there, and that's pretty good. I'm going to leave it at that. So there we go. It's the handle we're really concentrating on, not the knife. Come on, focus, you fecking thing. Here we go. And I think that looks pretty nice. I would definitely be tempted to do something similar again with swarf of some description. Obviously over time we might get chips coming out of it and you might get bits stuck in your hand, but at the moment it's nice and smooth. At the end of the day it's probably just going to go in a drawer with the rest of my knives that I make. But I like it. Pretty nice. And I like this shape of handle as well. I said earlier that I've never done one that shape. I rather like it. It's something different. Blade has got mucky from all the sharpening and my fingers all over it. But again, I didn't spend a lot of time on the blade. I haven't polished it highly or anything like that. But it is sharp, so I don't want to cut myself again. Oh, it's top heavy as well. So yep, pleased with that. Might do another one at some stage. Oh, just before I go, just want to show if you can see the tiny bevel that sharpener puts on. It's a lovely little bevel. Obviously you've set the angle you want it at, but you can see it's done a nice little job. Just see it there. So yeah, overall, chuffed with that. The concept works. You can make your own scale material with swarf. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.